Okay, good to see you guys all here. Welcome to the Rochester Security Summit, right? Is anyone this like their first time here? Wow, a lot of first timers, that's good. I'm actually gonna hit record because as you can see up there, my day job is community evangelist, right? What is that? So we'll get into that a little bit more, I think, as I go in my talk. But a community evangelist for me is, that is somebody who goes out and essentially makes all kinds of content. So that is my day job. I also, as was mentioned, am now the PR lead for the OWASP Top 10 for large language models, well, large language model applications anyways. This is a pretty fantastic project. If you don't know a ton about it, I would definitely recommend, if AI is kind of on your sites right now, go take a look at this thing. It is going to really, I think, dictate how we approach some of last session's problems, right? How we go about securing our environments for AI in the future. And also the host for This Month in Security, which is my podcast I've been doing for a little more than a year now. So podcasting is a tough thing, but if you're in the market for a fun podcast that is not vendor related, I promise, go ahead and check it out. There's a whole lot of stuff on there. So before I get into kind of the Terminator-y stuff, right? Anyone seen the Terminator ever? Yes, okay, I'm sure. Anyone not know the link between the Terminator and AI? Okay, good. So before I get into any of that stuff, I always like to know who I'm talking to. All right, and I promise you I'm not going to do a whole bunch of data slides. There will not be a quiz at the end, but I do want to know who I'm talking to. And I will do this sometimes with pop culture references. So first and foremost, I want to know who's here today, right? So I'm going to ask you guys to raise your hands as I kind of ask some questions. I want to know if you are in security management, if you would consider yourself to be in management role today. Okay, good. Okay, someone there. Okay, how about cybersecurity frontliners? Anyone doing SecOps? Ops on your day-to-day? Yes, operations. Do we have students in the room? All right, always a student, right? Come on, everyone should have raised their hands for that one. That's a definite one. How about, has anyone here ever managed an enterprise-size email infrastructure or larger? All right. How about larger in the service provider? Okay, and the last one, just because I want to get kind of more granular, right? Has anyone here ever recompiled the sendmail binary to include a new milter? Yes? All right, man. Good, me too, I'm in that. So that was a lifetime ago for me, it seems like. But now that, I'll get a little bit more into me in a second here. Now that I know a little bit more about you guys, I feel like I can speak appropriately to my audience. So me, Sarah Connor, no. I'm the protagonist today though, so I figured Sarah Connor might be appropriate for this discussion. I am most recently, I mentioned the PR lead for the OWASP Top 10 for large language models. Now, how that happened, really quick, I was looking at this project and I thought it seemed kind of interesting. I actually ended up seeing that a friend of mine, Jason Ross, who's here today and who's going to be speaking tomorrow, or no, not tomorrow anymore, today at 1, right next door, he took on a lead with this project. And I thought, man, that's fascinating. I got to know a little bit more. And I wanted to know a few things that he had going on over RIT, so I asked him onto my podcast. I figured it'd be an interesting interview. We talked a little bit about some things. And then at the end of it, after the cameras were shut off, I said to him, man, that sounds really cool. That's neat that you're involved in that. Why, I've sort of thought about getting involved in that. And, maybe I should do it. And he said to me, well, why don't you? I went, man, yeah, you're right. Why don't I? So right after we stopped talking, I went to the OWASP website, I looked up the project, and I joined a meeting. Like the next meeting that came up was the last meeting in beta before we had an official release. By the way, we do have an official release out. 1.1 just came out, so that was a big release the other day. But we were still in beta at that time, and I was just kind of introducing myself Soon thereafter, we ended up losing our PR lead, and I just happened to like make podcasts and things. So I think I kind of was at the right place, right time, and kind of with the right crowd of people. So I ended up taking on that role. I mentioned my podcast. That's something that I also will draw from a little bit here. I talk with a lot of people who are way smarter than me on a day-to-day basis, which I really enjoy. People that are doing all kinds of data collection things and like that for CVSS process. People who track CVEs and actually predict CVEs, that sort of thing is a real thing. I didn't know that was real, but really you can predict kind of the frequency at which types of CVEs will come out and whatnot. So that for me is exciting, and we've talked a lot about AI in that podcast through the year that it has been up and functional. And my day-to-day as a community evangelist, really simply, I used to be a pre-sales engineer, which is the next one on there for F5, and 30 years after I got my degree, I found the opportunity to use my video production degree for something, right? Anyone else have a degree that they don't use? Just wait 30 years, you'll be okay. I promise. That's my advice for you. And lastly, the one that I want to draw from the most, right? There were a couple other tidbits on there, but Internet Systems and Services Architect. I did this for Global Crossing for a long time. Anyone remember Global Crossing? It's the largest IP network on the planet. Still there, yes. So yeah, Global Crossing. And that is this guy. Oh my God, my hair is blonde there. That's terrible. I had hair there. That was really cool. But at this time that I was, given the rock on, I was somebody who managed a lot of SMTP servers, POP and IMAP servers. That was part of my day-to-day job. It wasn't all of it, right? I did LDAP, I did DNS, I did all the internet-facing services. And I did that, if any of you know Global Crossing, on a budget of $0, which was awesome. I was the Linux guy going to the Intel people saying, can I please have a server? Please, it's old, you retired it. I can use it, it'll still be good for another 10 years. And really, we had 10-year-old servers. I can't believe I'm saying that, but really, we did. But this guy was trying to explain to my current team today why email is terrible. Does anyone love their email? I'm just curious. That's one question I didn't ask. Nobody loves their email. Great. Okay, so I'm speaking to the right people. So this guy was trying to explain to my current team what the problems with email are. Why is it insecure? Why is it something that is really a bad mechanism for any sort of collaboration that there is out there? And really, why should we abandon it? And one of my teammates said to me, he goes, okay, I get this. I understand this. I'm in high technology every day, all day. But how can I explain this to my grandmother, right? My grandmother's the problem. And that's the thing. Like, how do we get that sort of topic across to a layperson? So he figured the best thing to do would be to try to, he was trying to help me out. To translate that down would be to ask SkyNet itself, right? So he, within 2 prompts, went to a GPT and said, can you please describe this problem to me? And I know it's an eye chart, I'll just summarize for a minute here. And then the second prompt that he had, because there's only 2 prompts here, the second prompt was, can you refine this just to make it much more succinct and to the point? I just want one example, I don't want a few examples. And we came up with this guy here, which normally I'm not a slide reader, but just in case anyone's old like me and forgot their readers, certainly let's consider the analogy of using a paper airplane to send important documents. While it may work occasionally for short distances, relying on paper airplanes for crucial business operations is problematic. Just like email, paper airplanes are unreliable. They might get lost, damaged, or misdirected easily. Moreover, you can't add important attachments or updates to paper airplane once it's in the air, illustrating email's inflexibility for real-time collaboration and updates. So just as you wouldn't trust paper airplanes for critical document delivery, email's unreliability and lack of flexibility can hinder important business operations. I thought that was great, really. I mean, like the paper airplane analogy, it's so good, and really I can explain this to my mom. She's 81, and she gets it. She understands. Oh, well, she was one of those people that if she was in this audience, she would have actually raised her hand. I love my email. And you shouldn't. And now she gets it because I showed this to her. So thanks to Leaf. Thank you, Leaf, for giving me a nice way to explain this to my mom. So the thing that really blew my mind, though, is I'm not a layperson when it comes to email, right? I'm somebody who's done a lot of work with email on large scale. And with that in mind, the coolest thing for this little ChatGPT piece is, right, I don't know if my pointer is going to work, but short distances, right? Well, it may work occasionally for short distances. That's the thing that popped out to me. How is that like email? Is anyone familiar with the 500-mile email debacle? Anyone? Show of hands. Couple of you. Okay, I'm not going to describe this because I really want you to go out and Google it. It's a fantastic read. It's been out there on Reddit forever. This is a real thing. How can a 500-mile email? And the why of that is like one of the best systems stories I've ever read. If anyone here is a systems nerd like I am, that is a great, great story. And true, for sure. So that is the problem with the email, right? We've got a whole lot in insecurity. And now here is the part in my presentation where it wouldn't be an AI presentation without some janky AI art, right? I need a hand. Really, give me a hand. And that's real, right? I just looked that up on Stable Diffusion, BDCC, that's fantastic. Wow, that's just wrong. So I need help. I want to know if anyone out there would just give me a hand and let me know. Anyone open to answering a quick question about their email? No judgments, all right. How many email accounts do you have?
Like 3 personal and 2 for work.
3, so I'm counting 5. And what's your name?
Neil.
Neil, hi, Neil, I'm Aubrey. So with 5 email accounts, my question then would be, how many of those 5 actually have 0 unread messages in them? Not a 1? No, come on. Anyone else? 0 unread messages in 1 email account. Not automated email accounts. Come on. Got a couple. You guys are diligent. Wow. Bravo. I expected there to be like a few. Well, I wanted to illustrate the problem, right? And this is part of the problem with something that may or may not be my wife's email account. May or may not be. And you are not alone, right? There are lots of people with unread email messages. Now this is, of course, long time that this has been building up, right? But I think it kind of illustrates what we use email for in large part. And if you're not doing this, if you're one of those people with the 0, that's fabulous. Please keep doing it. You're an SMTP administrator's best friend, I promise. But 81,185 emails, okay? So that is a lot by anyone's. I've not seen one this high. That's why I had to snap a photo. But I think we all know that there are people out there like that have this many. I don't have this many. But speaking of me, remember this guy? This guy knows that there's a problem here. That 81,185 emails, right? That, as far as a system goes, I look at that and I go, oh my God, how many emails per second are coming into that environment? How many mail environments are related right there? And what is the flow, right? Is this 100% junk? Well, it doesn't really matter because truthfully, this guy worked at a top 20 mail provider, not a top 5, and I can tell you that even at the top 20, okay, we pitched 99% of all inbound mail. And this is more than 10 years ago. It's worse now. I still talk to lots of email buds, and I promise you at the provider level, they are still pitching all that email. So what does that mean about pitching all this email? Well, if you're thinking about this, that means that all this stuff that's coming in, packets per second, right? Everyone knows Edge, how that works, right? Things are coming in at a particular packets per second, and it's very, very, very high. So if you're only taking in 1%, what that means is there's a lot of in-flight email always. And I can tell you from talking and working at Global Crossing on the product itself, right? I was not behind the firewall. I worked on those routers, on those switches, on the systems that actually, routed all that stuff globally. And I can tell you that the internet backbone is overbuilt in large part because of this. This is a lot of data, okay? That 99% that never ever even makes it to your spam folder. And that's how big a problem it is. So what we used for this, right, that's 99% is garbage. We use these things called milters and filters. I mentioned milters already. That's something that's precompiled into the binary. It operates at a much, much faster rate when you're scanning packets and trying to pitch a whole bunch of junk. So that's why milters are neat. And I can tell you, when I first went into this, because Global Crossing's not a top 20 mail provider, right? But I went into this top 20 mail provider, and rather than just bringing something into an SMTP server, these guys introduced me to load balanced clusters of email servers. I didn't really know that was a thing. So there's an Edge MX layer, right? These things have their own filters. And then after that, you'd bring something down into, we did an AV filter right after our MX layer. So this AV filter was gonna take out anything that was obviously virused. And then beyond that, we dropped down into mail delivery. Now, we also use these things called feedback loops, which talk to other providers to find out a little bit about their environment, and we could mark them safe or their users safe. They could mark our users safe, and if we had bad users between us, we'd get them out of the way a lot easier. But the cool thing about feedback loops was during the setup process, I got to talk to a lot of other email providers, okay? And these email providers all shared that, they were having essentially the same kind of thing. We were talking about 99% plus drops, 99.9% plus drops at the perimeters. So I can tell you, it's not just Aubrey worked at a crappy mail provider. That's not what it was. This is a problem with the internet. And that's why I think with AI, we're gonna see something a little bit different. Because I think, as security professionals, you guys know how bad actors work. Really, all it takes is this one guy, one spammer sitting there trying to, figure out how to take on this new problem. And if he's getting blocked by all these filters and milters, well, the cool thing is that if he's a smart person, he's gonna know that distributed attacks always work better. Well, not always, but for the most part, work better. So we've got the ability to actually distribute LLMs. And if you can't see this screen, I'll tell you, it's Docker. There are containerized LLMs out there ready for download in 2 seconds. And then it's yours. And then it's your application. You can work on it. You can train it to do what you want it to do from there, right? And again, available for anyone. Download, very small. If this guy really wanted to make this kind of attack bot a little bit better, then this hacker could also go multi-cloud, right? Because everything that's cool is multi-cloud these days. I think that seems to be the case anyways. But with multi-cloud, this bot that this guy's building could very easily have, AWS credentials, could very easily have Azure and GCP, all the other major clouds, even minor clouds, whatever they want to do. As long as they've got authentication credentials, they're not going to run out of these, because I think we all know that compromised credentials can be found everywhere on the internet, Pastebin, wherever. I mean, there's all kinds of credentials that can be had, or if you got some time, John the Ripper, right, you're going to be looking for these things and just make sure that you've got more credentials so that you can expand this bot. Now, if this bot that we're talking about, and let's call it Spam GPT, right, just for giggles. So Spam GPT is going to be internet resident, it's out there and it's getting bigger and bigger. If he's really clever, he could even, maybe if he gets locked out of clouds, right? Maybe the clouds get wise to what this hacker's doing. They lock him out, they try and work on getting him gone. Well, we also know that these things are small enough to hide actually in a BIOS or in an XPU. UEFI bootkits are real. And so what that means is if you shut this thing down, you shut the machine down and you wipe it and reinstall it, that attack threat is still going to come back on that system. So whether this thing is cloud or whether this thing has worked its way into your data center and really is in there for a long time, if it's like this, you got a way to to get this done. And the scary thing for me is that it's very easy to get this done. So, the weird thing about this, and I know it sounds kind of like, boy, if we're looking at how human is this, because I guess I probably should have mentioned that, milters and filters, what it boils down to, how human is the email? That's what these protections amount to. How human is it? And anyone who has, can I see anyone who has not used ChatGPT yet? Okay, there's a couple of you. Good, good. Good, keep it that way. No, I'm kidding. You gotta use it. So with that in mind, right, how human is it? You two may not realize how human it is, but I'll tell you what, when these large language models get attached to an application, it's really human. It's really human. And the scariest thing to me about this topic is it's already happening. It has begun. Anyone, Mortal Kombat? No. When I put in, yes, when I put in my my topic for this was not really happening. Okay, this is this article from InfoSec magazine is from October, early October, and when did they call for papers? It was like a couple months back. So just in a span of a few months, right? I started talking to my coworkers about this in February timeframe, March timeframe, and went to look and see, is anyone paying attention to this? Because like email could really just die any second with all the in-flight mail. And there were a couple people who were theorizing it, but it is good to note, in the last talk that was here, these guys actually mentioned it just before me, this is happening. They mentioned that right out of the gates. Emails, they're like impossible to find because there's no script. Like that's it. Everything right now, spam-wise, is written from script. You can detect it. I don't care how good you are at it. It's not the same thing as a large language model and what that can do. So, I don't want to just leave everyone with like a terrifying, hey, this thing's happening. See ya, I'm out. That's not the idea of this talk, right? You come to give a talk and you come to give a talk for problems and solutions, typically. So I think that we all have a number of different solutions for this problem, and what the problem really is, I mentioned how quickly this could happen. Imagine all that in-flight email. If you've got, and you guys have infrastructures, I'm sure everyone here has some sort of infrastructure. Look, if you get 100x the traffic on your infrastructure inbound, you're drowned. Why is that? Well, one of the things that I learned from working with a tier 1 service provider here, global in North America, they're in North America, but they're a global service provider, is that their entire infrastructure runs at 80%. It's funny, my time in that top 20 mail provider, our entire infrastructure ran at 80%. So when we're talking about disk, when we're talking about throughput, the idea when you have really, really large environments is you want to make sure that you're maximizing the dollars that you've spent, right? And minimizing your risk. You've still got 20% for growth, and when are you going to grow 20% overnight, right? Well, you're going to grow 99% overnight is what I'm talking about here. And this could happen in hours. If somebody really got themselves set up properly and had something out there available and ready to go, I really don't understand why email couldn't be gone in a matter of minutes. I've watched spam bombs get hit my environment. I don't see why this couldn't be global. The size of attacks that we're seeing in the terabits per second, that kind of stuff is very realistic nowadays. So most importantly, what can you do, right? Anyone Ramones? Okay, come on, some of you know the Ramones. Okay, this is from a song called Beat on the Brat. So, but yeah, what can you do? We've got to do something about this. And I think the easiest answer is to say, run like hell. Really? Really, why do you need email? Run like hell. Pink Floyd said it best, right? And even get on a bike and get away. Because that dude ran really fast, Robert Patrick. I don't know if you saw T2, but it was creepy. I wonder if that was AI art, right? Back then. They could do a better job. Well, we have to figure out what's the difference between personal and work. That's the thing, right? We have two different ways that we need to solve this. I don't think we use our personal email for the same ways that we use our work emails, right? I mean, we do some of the same things, but I think we have to come up with solutions for both of these things or we're never gonna get rid of this dinosaur. And really, I do believe that AI is gonna get rid of this dinosaur along with a lot of the other early internet protocols. We've already seen how DNS has changed within the past few years. I mean, who'd have thunk you'd be doing an HTTP GET to get a DNS resolution, right? I never would have called that as a DNS administrator for 10, 15 years. It just didn't occur to me. But there are differences in the way that we use these things. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at a couple of these misuses of personal email. Sensitive document storage and transmission. I think that's one, I swear to God, I know a married couple, husband and wife, who have been emailing their monthly finances to each other ever since they've been married. So their service provider has 20 years of financial data in their email, just sitting out there. It's just one example, right? I mean, I think people, actually, my mom has some friends that also do this sort of thing. They'll send like a really important receipt or some health information, and they'll just, no problem, just email that to a friend. That's not something we can do. I think everyone in this room appreciates that, and probably some of you use secure emails. In fact, I think I've received secure emails from 1 or 2 people in this room before. Another thing, really chit-chat. There are so many things that you can do to chat that are just better than email. Why? If we take a look at how this works, okay, let's say we're using a chat program. That typically is an API call out to some server, and then the server communicates with the other client and gives it the discussion, right? It continues the discussion. Really simple, like 2-step process, pretty much, simplifying it. But with email, when you're chatting with email, what happens is you package this thing up and you send it to an outbound mail server. The mail server has to inspect it. Then it sends it to an upstream mail server that does some other inspection on it. From there, and all these DNS, by the way, a lot of DNS, looking up text records, looking up MD5s, like there's all kinds of things that can happen in that just to chat with a friend, right? And then on the receiving side, the same kind of thing happens. They have to pull from an email server. It's just super convoluted. So really, I'm gonna say why? Why would you do that? Take the chat somewhere else. And my guess is a lot of you have already moved to this point. If you're getting that feel from this list, that is sort of the intent. Sharing photographs. Holy cow, my mom, again, every time I take a picture in her kitchen of like my kids and like family stuff, she goes, "Can you email me that photograph?" And no, I'm not gonna email you that photograph because that just doesn't make sense. What is that? 15, 20 meg attachment that then needs to be replicated across all those servers that I mentioned. By the way, all those servers in a lot of cases will cache that. So how many people do you need having your photo along the way? There's no reason to send a photo and email anymore. And sharing jokes, I swear to God, between my father and my father-in-law, I had to create a separate account. So that's like my 18th email account, that just for their jokes. Because I had to tell them, yeah, I'll read these someday. And that secretly was my 81,100 emails, right? But really, I honestly don't know what happened to that account. So it's sitting out there collecting all their mails that they're still probably sending to me, and I don't know. Now, when it comes to the corporate side of things, this is a little bit different, right? And I think you guys have probably, are you guys seeing this? Do you know people who do these things in email? Yes, I'm seeing nodding heads. Good, 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 thank you. I know I'm the last thing standing between you guys and lunch, so. At work, right? So everything that I mentioned in personal also happens in work emails. It's just there's more stuff that happens in work emails that are worse. So alerting and logging. Oh my gosh, I'll admit it. I was really, this is probably 15, 20 years ago, putting up some stupid service, and I remember it gave me an option to, I can't believe it gave me this option, it gave me an option to log via SMTP. Really? You're gonna have me mail my logs whenever it kind of gets to an arbitrarily full size. You're just gonna mail my logs to me. So there are still, and also having worked with some customers over the past, 14 years with F5, I see that in a lot of customers too. There are all kinds of logs that actually still occur over SMTP in enterprise environments, even in some of the environments for people in this room that I might happen to know. Ticketing. I ran this thing called Request Tracker. Anyone else Request Tracker? No? Okay, it's ancient. Doesn't matter whether your ticketing system is Request Tracker or Remedy or whatever it is, there's always an email component to those ticketing systems. Why? Because that's where you are gonna read about the progress of your ticket. You wouldn't want a ticketing system to just text you on Teams or something like that. You'd wanna go through 15 different servers to make sure that you get your message, because that makes much more sense. Now with ticketing, that's something that I think could easily be remedied. Remedy, right? Ticketing system. But it's something that we still live with day to day. And decision making, right? I think we probably also have all seen a lot of people get together in our environments, in our corporate environments, and talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get all the right people in one place and talk about it. So we've got these 9 experts, right, that we're gonna make a decision with in our corporation. And then all of a sudden, we remember, oh, wait, we gotta invite what's his name? And so we put that guy on the list also, and now we have 10. But if somebody forks that email and goes with the original 9, then what's your source of truth look like, right? You don't know at that point. And the point is these project tracking and decision-making discussions get lost in translation half the time. And as a vendor, really working with customers, that was always really amazing to watch, because you would see that these conversations actually do splinter. You get teams that don't want to talk to the other teams. And now suddenly you've got me as a vendor, I would have 3 or 4 different email conversations happening on the same topic and have to keep in mind who I'm talking to about what and what I can and cannot share with each. That's ridiculous. And if I'm going through that as a vendor at the time, because again, I don't do sales anymore, but if I was doing that at the time, then you guys are also doing that. That is happening. And you're not getting the complete message, and projects don't get done really well. So now that we have an idea of what we have that's happening, what can we do? This is an easy fix right here. And I know I said Linux guy, right? There's gonna be some Microsoft in here. But this is a picture of a couple of different things. I've got a smart sheet, right? A smart sheet in the lower left, and I've got Office 365 here in the upper right. And the reason that I point out both of these things is one amazing thing: collaborative document modification, right? I can be talking to somebody, whether it's on the phone or face-to-face, and the 2 of us are using that document at the same exact time. It's open, I can see where their mouse is, what field on the Excel sheet they're highlighting, whatever it is, but it doesn't have to be Microsoft, right? It can be another vendor. Every single app is moving towards this when you're looking at collaboration. So why do I bring that up? We don't have to email any important documents. If you get someone in your environment that wants to email you that latest Excel spreadsheet or something, please do not just say no thank you. Send it to someone else. Also this guy, does anyone use Teams? Yes, that's a good thing. I tell you, I was really reluctant. I know, again, I'm Linux guy, right? When someone at my company at F5 told me that we were going to start using Teams, I was like, oh my God, this is like the 10th going to be failed Microsoft chat program. This thing's garbage. Like the past 7 have been garbage. So this one's going to be no different. I am happy to say I'm pleasantly surprised by Teams. I think that, it feels to me like Microsoft has taken the gas off of trying to develop operating systems and are really focused on developing software that works. And I like that. Now, the neat thing about this, I'm showing you here, the team that I'm showing you is specific to my podcast, and what we do with this is, rather than, again, send emails back and forth about what topics we're going to do per show, we have one master thread per show. And it's just, this month in security, episode 13, and that's the whole title. From there, when we respond to it, every piece of that conversation is tracked. It's permanent unless we need to delete it, right? And nothing really gets lost. It truly is centralized, rather than us having to email back and forth and try to figure out who we're going to talk to, what topics we're going to talk about, and things like that. This keeps it all there. And links, right? Now, another really cool thing about Teams for me is the integrated document storage, right? I talked about disk space a couple of times. I think that's one of the things that we don't realize. Sending documents, okay? I watched, and I'm not kidding, I watched one of my executives at one of the companies I worked at. They sent a 60 meg PowerPoint to 800 employees. Yeah, that was great. That's not like a mail filtering problem. That became a disk problem. That one exec actually cost money. Like right then and there, that's a lot of money. Well, it depends. If you got SCSI disks back in the day, right? Those were like $9,000 or whatever. But, the price of disk today is somewhat cheap. But nonetheless, if you don't have to burn a terabyte, don't. It's just stupid. So speaking of that, OneDrive, right? That's the answer here. You just send a link to your document. And whether you send that link in, in Teams or whether you send that via text, you just send a link to the document. You give the person, authorization so that they can modify that document. And you, again, have one source of truth. I think we really need to start thinking about that kind of thing for everything, not just for Ansible, right? We need one golden source of truth for everything that we kind of deal with, especially as truth is going to become fuzzy with AI in time. And also this, Slack, right? Anyone else, Slack? Yes, I know there's got to be some Slack users in here. For me, Slack was really neat. I started using Slack when I joined the OWASP Top 10 for Large Language Model Applications. Before that, I was always kind of like, man, I wish I could use Slack like the cool kids. I really do. Like, I have to use this Teams thing, and it's cool, and it's great. Now I have just incorporated this like any other application. It's not like I had to move from Teams to Slack. We all know that's not how it works now. We've got apps. We've got lots of apps. We have lots of ways to communicate with each other. Slack is one of those great things for work. But what about personal, right? We talk about fixes for work. To me, that's a little bit easier. Fixes for personal is a little different. We have things like, passwords that you need the 6-digit code for and things like that. Google made a great move by actually, saying we're done with passwords. So moving to passkeys is fantastic. Passwordless stuff is good, and I think that's going to help with the personal. But if you're wondering for fixes on personal, these are the way my kids communicate. They don't do email ever. Oh my gosh, my kids never email anything. Like when my kid lost his password for Discord, he's like, how do I get my password back, Dad? Well, what's your email? I don't know. Oh, okay. So Discord, right? Discord is one of those great ways. That's the way my younger child, he's in high school. That's the way he communicates with his friends. It's like always Discord. His phone rings, it's Discord. His computer dings, it's Discord. He's on games, it's always Discord. And my oldest, who's in college now, right? They communicate via Instagram with most of their friends. That's how they communicate. That's how they chat. That's how they share photos. I think you guys know that's how that works, right? So Instagram, one great way to do that. And my eagles right there, right, yeah. All right, so another great way to do that for us old folks, right, Facebook. I think my kids would say, yeah, that's just an old people's social media platform, Dad. It's funny because this one is actually from I don't know if anyone knows King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Fantastic, it's my favorite band in the world. So this meme is great. It's when you put your Giz playlist on shuffle, and the guy on the left, that's my playlist. But the guy on the right, who's like total punk, that's also my playlist, right? A lot of variety. Anyways, go check out Giz sometime on your own. Facebook is great because Facebook does all this stuff for us. And to me, I use all of these things, right? These are my photos. I'm on Discord. I have to be on Discord. I have to be on all these things for work. And it's funny, someone asked like last session, who hates social media? I hate it like the most because I have to live on it. And now I can't even post things I want to post. But this is one of those things that I really do enjoy Facebook. I know people hate it, but it has a lot of good features. And frankly, my mom's on there. Like I have lots of people on there that I can share and integrate with. And of course, all these things too, right? We all have apps. Facebook, I mentioned, Facebook Messenger. There are people that I communicate with on Messenger. In fact, my friend Brad, he and I were talking for like months, and we were only talking on Facebook Messenger. Nothing but. My phone dings, it's him. I can talk to him on that. Or if I'm in front of my computer, I get a ding there, it's him again. And it wasn't until our wives actually started texting each other that we went, maybe we should exchange phone numbers too. That would be handy. And now we do that, so we text, right? And hey, speaking of Bob Hagan, he's right up there. So we got, text messages. I think that's the way that most of us do it. I had to put an obligatory picture of the artist formerly known as Twitter on there. And of course, calendaring. We would all be lost without calendaring. And if all else fails, you have to call somebody, right? This kind of thing still works. And actually, I'm curious, I was thinking about this morning as I was like putting up this slide. Last night, it actually started really occurring to me, going, I wonder how many people actually still call versus make, face call of some sort. I mentioned Teams, we got all kinds of other ways to do face-to-face. So I don't know how I'm gonna ask this question, but who here is more apt to make a phone call instead of a face call? I just wanted to know. Okay. Cool. And is that different, for those of you who answered yes, is that different at work? Yes. I'm seeing a couple of nods. All right. Because at work, I think we're more apt to, like, I got Teams, so just, bam, I hit the little, the little camera, and I'm face-to-face with my boss, unfortunately. There are good days and bad days, right? So, but that's it. Now, for me, I hope some of this illustrates that we are not lost, right? This is kind of a doom and gloom topic. And again, I'm going to say it again. I truly believe email is doomed, and soon, as an administrator. I will also tell you that back in 2001, when I became an email administrator, I was at a LISA conference, if anyone knows what LISA is, like large implementation for systems. So at a LISA conference, so all of us were mail administrators, like everyone in the room was a Unix mail administrator. We're all debating, should we even have this technology? In 2001, we were asking, gosh, does this make sense? It probably doesn't. It's probably way too expensive. We shouldn't do this anymore. And we've gone 20 more years with this awful technology still attached to us and dragging us down. And it may not seem like that, but it really is. It's gone on for far too long. Which brings me to kind of my finishing bit here. Why am I talking about email at a security conference, right? Because this is an important thing. And one thing I can tell about all of you, I know a couple of people in this room, and one thing I do know about all of you is that this is how your organization see you. You guys are rock stars. I'm not kidding. Bottom line, they listen to you. Okay? Again, working for F5, I talk to network teams. And every time some difficult question would come up, all the network guys are going, oh, network, well, I don't know if we can do that. Can we do it? We better call security. It's always, we better call security. And it always ends up boiling down to that. Why? Because you guys are the smartest people in the room, most of the time, like from what I've seen. And they want to understand from you what is safe and what is going to cost them money. The last conversation before me was all about AI risk. We have a tremendous amount of risk from AI. We have, and I think some people, I was hearing conversation in the back of the room the last session that was in here, and these guys were going, well, you can't secure against that. That's not true. We have ways that we can secure against a lot of these things. If you don't know what those things are, please come listen to the OWASP Top 10 for Large Language Models. We actually have a call on Thursday. So if you're not doing anything Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, it'd be good to have an understanding of what are some of the ways that you can defend against these things that are going on. You should all be thinking about bringing up AI in your environment, right? One of those things we talk about risk is like, okay, if you're going to ChatGPT and you're worried about, losing IP, there are ways to defend against that also. We can now take conversations with a GPT, and if you have the right networking technology in your environment, you can definitely kind of move things out that are IP related and get that out to a vault. Okay, so that GPT is no longer interacting with your IP, it's interacting with a blob that represents your IP. And that blob never actually makes it. So that is a real technology, and I've just been exposed to it recently. It's really great. So the IP problem is, I think, largely solvable, and a lot of the other issues that we see out there are also largely solvable. People asked about DLP in the last session. That's coming. It's possible, and it's being worked on. So again, I just want to finish up and say thank you so much for listening to me. You guys are rock stars, and please evangelize this. Get rid of email in your environment before this bites you. That's it. Thank you, guys. And early. All right.